Okay, I want to make a short video to show off some of the ways that you could customize the minifigures from the Lego Ideas Blacksmith Cottage using simple parts, most of which are the spare parts that you should have left over from the set. So you're guaranteed to have most of these parts in your collection already. And there's some really clever ideas you can use just to customize them and display them in a bit more of a unique way to tell a bit more of a story. So these are the spare parts that you will have left over after finishing building your blacksmith set. And there's actually some really useful pieces in here. For me, the MVP is this beard piece, which is the blacksmith's beard. And that is fabulous for customizing minifigures because it's a really cool hairpiece. I'm not actually going to be using it today because there's only one other male minifigure who has grey hair, and I don't really want two people right next to each other with a huge ginger beard. But fabulous piece. There's also these fire pieces, really useful for mock building and stuff like that. The vegetation pieces will also be really useful. Probably not going to be using them today, but anyway, just pointing them out. This feather piece, this plume, is the same as the fire piece, just in blue. That's really useful. Definitely going to be using that. The bucket handle, I am determined. We're going to use the bucket handle today. Random piece, really want to use it for something just out there thinking. But yeah, on the whole. Oh, this Technic piece as well. These are really useful for detailing minifigure weapons and things, just to add texture and little pieces. Not using it functionally as a Technic piece, but looks cool in a different context. These are the extra pieces that we're going to be using for my ideas today. Really simple pieces, and again, probably things that you would get as spares in sets. These are light pieces that are commonly given as spares. This is a stand that collectible minifigures go on. I'm going to be using that for something. You'll see just add a bit of stability to one figure in particular. Maybe that might be hard to come by, but if you collect minifigures, you're going to have a ton of these hanging around. This snot brick is also a little bit more of a specific part, but fairly common, and you probably will have them in your collection somewhere, so not too technical. So we're going to start with the two Black Falcon soldiers that you get in the set. This is the way that the instruction manual suggests putting them with their equipment and armour, sword and shield, and a halberd build there. We're not going to be using the sword and shield today, just put those to one side. I'm going to start with this older knight, and he's going to be done up as a knight on horseback using a lance. So first up, I'm going to lose the hair because he's going to be wearing this helmet. And we can modify the helmet a little bit using the blue feather piece from the spare parts. In the actual set, this is the tip of a quill, but here it can be a feather on top of his helmet. The blue really suits the Black Falcons, and it just adds a little bit of flair, looks pretty cool. Then for the lance, we can take the halberd and just lose the axe piece, and already it starts to look a bit more like a lance, but we're going to extend the length of it a little bit. Take that handle off. From the extra pieces that aren't included in the set, we've got this blue flag. These are pretty common in medieval sets, and again, the blue suits the Black Falcons quite a lot. I'm just going to push it onto the end of the spear there and push it all the way up to the top. It's quite common for lances to have flags hanging down like this, and just adds a little bit, again, a bit of visual flair. Looks quite cool. We can extend the length of it a little bit by using this hose piece, or whatever you want to call it, from the spare parts, and a 1x1 round piece with a hole in. Just going to pop that in the end of the hose, and then pop that on to there, and that should, the hilt of the spear is just going to go through the hole there and clip in place. Then we can extend the back of it by taking this handle piece that was part of the halberd already, adding one of these 1x1 pieces with the little tip on there from the spares. If we pop that on that end of the handle, like that, and then on the opposite end, it can take the black 1x1 tile from the spare parts, just pop that on the other end, and that's just going to go on the back of this hose looking piece, and that gives us a lance, which looks a bit more, has a bit more flair to it than original. And then yeah, I'm going to sit him on the horse and have him hold it. Here he is when he's finished. You can sit him on the horseback, holding the lance, and by using the collectible minifigure base, you can have the horse rearing up on its hind legs. That base is just going to give it the stability to pose that way. And yeah, he looks pretty awesome on the back of his horse. You don't get a saddle or anything with the set, so he's just on there with no saddle. If you had one in your spare parts, you could add a saddle piece by any means. But yeah, I think he looks a lot more awesome on there, on his charger, going into battle. Okay, next up is the female Black Falcon soldier. I really like this minifigure. I think she's got a certain something to her, a certain style. She really reminds me, for some reason, of Cara Dune from The Mandalorian. So I kind of want to do her as like a heavy warrior. And so I'm going to build her like a mace using spare parts and the extra bits you've seen. So we'll start off with this black rod piece that you get left over from your spares. In the build, these are on the ground floor of the blacksmith's, just as rods of iron or whatever. I'm going to use it as the hilt of her weapon. And to build the head of the mace, we've got these 3 Technic pieces. Pretty common. I like these just because they have a bit of texture to them, and so when you put them on things, just as detailing, they kind of look quite awesome. So if you put a little one on the big gear, which is like the actual head of the mace, and then another one of these little ones the other way up, so the teeth of the gear part are facing upwards this time, and then downwards on the bottom one, and then those 3 together make kind of the head of the mace that looks pretty gnarly, and the sort of thing that a heavy warrior woman would wield. On the hilt of the mace there, I'm going to use this like the brown piece, like a burl of wood. In the set, these are used on the 4-poster bed as like end pieces. So again, I want to use it as an end piece on the hilt of her mace. So if I grab this 1x1 with hole, again from the spare parts, and pop that on there, this will now just, the shaft of the mace will go into the hole of there just nicely, and that is a pretty gnarly, simple looking weapon with some nice detailing. Here she is finished off with her mace, and I've just thrown the shield back in there that she's kind of holding lazily down by her side. Bit of attitude, and yeah, the mace, she's holding it upside down, like stuck in the ground, ready for a fight. You can pose it that way, or a really cool trick that you can use when posing weapons like this, in particular, if you've got one of these clip pieces, there is actually one of these in the spares from the blacksmith set, but I'm going to be using that in a sec in our next build. So if you've got one of these, you can attach it to your weapon on the hilt like this, and then put that in the minifigure's hand instead. You can kind of pose it like they've got the weapon over their shoulder, like this. Up close, you're going to notice that it's this weird hand clip weapon setup, but from a distance, you don't really notice, and it just looks like she's holding it on her shoulder, again in a kind of laid back, don't really give a kind of attitude there. I quite like how that looks. That's pretty awesome. Last up, we've got the blacksmith, who should be the star of the show. This is his cottage after all. And he's got this little hammer. That's okay, but I want to give him something a bit beefier. So let's see. Get rid of that. Sit me down, mate. I've got this long bar with hilt, extra piece from the spares. I'm going to grab this Technic connector, which is used in the bellows of the forge, I think, in the main set. But yeah, you end up with a spare piece from it. Here it is. I'm just going to pop it on the hilt of this. This is going to be a large 2-handed hammer at the end of the day. So this is just on the hilt here. And again, from the extra parts that I used, we've got this little horn piece in brown. So it just looks like a bit of wood or whatever, just a bit of detailing. If we put that into the other end of the Technic connector, it just adds a little bit of flair at the bottom of this piece. And for the head of the hammer, we're going to start with that dark grey snot brick from before, and on the bottom of it put a 1x1 round with hole in the bottom so that it can be attached to the handle. like this. The head of the hammer is going to be made from 2 1x1 grey pieces and 1x1 tile. I've got mine a drum lacquered metal piece that I got as a spare from somewhere. Doesn't have to be drum lacquered like this. It can just be grey or any colour really. But if we stack those three on top of one another, and then straighten them up nicely, pop that on the front of there. That's kind of like the head of a hammer. On top, just for a bit of extra flair and detailing from the spare pieces, I've got this dark grey slope. And then on the back of the hammer, we'll take the clip from the spare pieces and pop it on the back there. Done that wrong. Push that one all the way in and then this in from underneath like that. Got this clip on the back, and then the bucket handle can go on this clip just for like a bit of flair and a bit of like shaping and detailing. Looks pretty cool. And yeah, that is a very large two-handed hammer that our blacksmith can be using if he's doing a bit more fantasy blacksmithing or anything like that. This is just a bit more badass looking. Probably not realistic, but it looks pretty sick. And again, from a distance, this is the sort of thing that you want to be seeing in your sets. It's just outrageous detailing, be over the top, be silly. We've also got the blacksmith's wife. I actually like the way that she looks anyway. I think she's a really cool minifigure. And I don't think there's anything else really custom that we can do to a bow and arrow to really push her past where she is already. One fun way of posing characters with bows and arrows, though, is by sort of turning them to their side, so she's looking over her shoulder and facing sideways. If you pop one hand in the bottom part of the bow and arrow, like this, you can position the other hand with the hand like this on the arrow, so it's like she's pulling the drawstring back. And then when she stands sideways on like this, it looks like she's aiming the bow and arrow. Put that a bit higher so it's a bit more flat. And yeah, a bit more dynamicism to the way that she's posed, and looks pretty awesome. And so here they are in situ. The blacksmith's wife is just practicing her archery off to one side. The man himself is there with his ridiculously oversized hammer, ready to do some serious forging. I know it's silly, but I just think it looks awesome. And then the two black falcons, she's just chilling out, she's bored, she's waiting for the next fight. Like, come on, this is so dull. And he's riding atop his charger, thinks he looks the bee's knees, rearing up on his horse. And yeah, those are just some fun modifications you can do if you have this set. I absolutely adore this set. I think this is one of my favourite sets in my collection. It is so beautiful and such a fun medieval, not even fantasy set, but just realistic medieval. I really adore it, and I love modifying it and posing the figures. Just these figures that you get with the set, before you even start mixing them up with figures from other sets, these guys look totally awesome. I think there's some fun little environmental stories you can tell with these guys. Okay, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these types of modifications or mocks, stay tuned to my channel. I'm going to be posting some more. Feel free to drop a like if you enjoyed it, and yeah, well, thanks very much.